I spent the last few years talking to retirees worth 7 figures, and almost none of them look like what you'd picture. No yacht, no country club polo, no brand new truck in the driveway. What they do have in common is a list of purchases they simply stopped making, quietly, without ever announcing it to anyone. Meanwhile, their neighbors with half the net worth are still buying every single one of them. Today I'm walking through 7 of those purchases, in order from mildly surprising to this one changes everything. Number 1 on this list isn't even about money. It's about a habit almost nobody thinks to break. Let's get into it. Before we dive in, I'm not a financial advisor, and this isn't personalized advice. Think of this as patterns I've noticed, not a rule book. Always run your own numbers with a professional before making a big financial move. Okay, let's go. Number 7. The least luxury vehicle. Here's a pattern I noticed almost immediately once I started paying attention. The wealthiest retirees I've met almost never lease. Ever. Leasing is marketed as the smart, flexible option. Low payments, new car every few years, no long-term commitment. What it actually is, for most people, is a permanent car payment with no finish line. You never stop paying. You never own anything. And every 3 years, you hand the keys back and start the meter over again. Compare that to a retiree I'll call Frank, a former high school shop teacher. Net worth north of $2 million by the time he stopped working. Frank bought a used pickup truck in 2009 for about $14,000. He still drives it, not because he can't afford something newer, because he genuinely doesn't see the point. It starts every morning and it hauls my firewood, he told me. What exactly am I upgrading? Meanwhile, his son-in-law, decent income, but nowhere near Frank's net worth, has leased a new SUV every 3 years for the last decade. Added up over 10 years, and he's paid for roughly 3.5 vehicles without ever owning a single one outright. The wealthy retirees I've talked to almost universally buy vehicles that are 2 to 4 years old, pay cash or pay them off fast, and then drive them into the ground. It's not about being cheap. It's about refusing to pay a permanent toll for something that loses value the moment you drive it away. Number 6. The just-in-case insurance stack. This one sneaks up on people because each individual policy sounds so reasonable in the moment. You buy a laptop, and they offer accidental damage coverage for $8 a month. You book a weekend trip, and travel insurance pops up for $40. You get a new phone, and suddenly you're paying $12 a month to protect a $700 device you'll upgrade in 2 years anyway. None of these, on their own, feel like a big deal. But stack them up: device insurance, travel insurance, extended warranties on appliances, add-on riders on things you already insure elsewhere, and a lot of households are quietly paying $150 to $300 a month insuring things that were never actually likely to break, get lost, or go wrong in the first place. Retirees who've actually built wealth tend to draw a hard line. Insure against things that would genuinely wreck your finances if they happened. A house fire, a serious illness, a lawsuit, a death. Everything smaller than that, they simply plan to absorb out of pocket if it ever happens, because in the long run, self-insuring the small stuff is almost always cheaper than paying a company to worry about it for you. One retired accountant put it to me bluntly: if I can't afford to replace it in cash, I probably shouldn't have bought it. And if I can afford to replace it in cash, why am I paying someone else every month to promise they'll do what I could already do myself? Number 5. The never-ending renovation cycle. If you've scrolled home renovation content for more than 5 minutes, you already know the cycle. White kitchens, then warm wood tones, then all white again. Then moody maximalism, then back to white. It moves fast, and it's expensive to keep chasing. Here's what almost nobody says out loud about aesthetic renovations. The moment you finish them, the trend clock starts ticking toward dated again. A full kitchen remodel commonly runs somewhere between $40,000 and $80,000, depending on the market and materials. And homeowners typically only recover a portion of that cost when they eventually sell, often somewhere in the 60 to 70% range. though it varies a lot by region and project scope. Do that math honestly, and a purely cosmetic renovation can easily cost you $15,000 to $25,000 in pure loss the moment it's finished. Before you even factor in that you'll probably want to redo it again in 8 or 10 years when the trend cycles back around. Retirees who've held on to real wealth generally renovate for exactly 2 reasons. Something is broken, or something genuinely doesn't function. A leaking roof gets fixed. Failing plumbing gets replaced. A kitchen with a genuinely unworkable layout gets redone. But a perfectly functional bathroom doesn't get gutted because a certain tile pattern went viral this spring. I've walked into more than one 7-figure retiree's home and seen carpet and cabinetry that hasn't been touched since the Clinton administration, and a brokerage account that would make your eyes water. Number 4. Anything bought to be seen. There's a quiet flip that happens in a lot of genuinely wealthy people's spending, and it's almost the opposite of what you'd expect. Early in their careers, plenty of them did buy the visible stuff, the recognizable logo, the flashy watch, the car that turns heads in the parking lot. It's a normal phase. But somewhere along the way, once the wealth is actually real and no longer needs proving, most of them quietly drop it entirely. The logic, once you hear it, is obvious. A status purchase only works if strangers recognize it and are impressed by it. But the moment you no longer care what strangers think of you, the entire value proposition of the status purchase disappears. You're just paying a premium for a signal you no longer need to send. So instead, you get a strange, almost inverse pattern. Real money increasingly dresses in ways that give away nothing at all. A plain sweater instead of a logo hoodie. A well-fitted, unbranded coat instead of a flashy jacket. A watch that tells time and nothing else. As one retired dentist told me, only half joking, nobody who's actually rich needs you to know it. The people who need you to know are usually the ones still paying it off. Quick pause here. If you've caught yourself in one of the first 4 already, you're honestly in good company. These are the easiest habits to pick up without noticing. If this is resonating, go ahead and subscribe now, because the next 3 are the ones that quietly do the most long-term damage. And the last one might be the most important thing in this entire video. Let's keep going. Number 3. Hobbies priced like a second mortgage. Retirement finally gives people the time for the hobbies they always meant to pick up. And a lot of people immediately reach for the most expensive ones available. Boating is the classic example. The purchase price is just the entry fee, slip fees, maintenance, winterizing, insurance, fuel, and repairs stack up fast, easily running well into 5 figures a year for a mid-size boat. Golf memberships at a private club can run anywhere from a few thousand to well over $20,000 a year before you've paid for a single round of golf, a cart, or lunch at the clubhouse. None of this makes golf or boating wrong. Plenty of people get real, lasting joy from both, and that's worth something too. But the retirees who've actually held on to their wealth tend to gravitate toward hobbies where the cost has almost nothing to do with the enjoyment. Hiking trails that are free, a vegetable garden that pays you back in tomatoes, a wood shop built from tools accumulated over decades, a public library card, volunteering that costs nothing but time. Run the numbers honestly, and the gap is enormous. A boating and golf lifestyle can easily run $20,000 to $40,000 plus a year. A hiking and gardening lifestyle might run a few hundred. Over a 25 to 30-year retirement, that's not a small difference. It's frequently the entire difference between leaving something behind for your family and quietly drawing your accounts down to zero. Number 2. The advisor who takes a cut no matter what happens. This is the one that tends to get people defensive, so let's just walk through the actual math calmly. A lot of financial advisors charge what's called an assets under management fee, typically around 1% of your total portfolio every single year, regardless of whether your investments went up, down, or sideways that year. On the surface, 1% sounds small. On a $1 million portfolio, that's $10,000 a year. Manageable, right? Here's the part that's easy to miss. That $10,000 isn't just $10,000. It's $10,000 a year that stops compounding for you. Assuming a portfolio grows at a reasonable long-term average of somewhere around 6 to 7% annually, a steady 1% fee drag over a 25-year retirement can plausibly cost somewhere in the range of $300,000 to $500,000 in total portfolio value by the end. To be clear, some advisors absolutely earn their fee, especially for people who'd otherwise panic sell in a downturn or need real, ongoing planning help. This isn't never use an advisor. It's know exactly what percentage-based fees actually cost you over decades and decide deliberately instead of by default. A lot of retirees who've held on to significant wealth either manage a simple, low-cost index fund portfolio themselves, often just a few hours a year, or they pay a fee-only fiduciary a flat rate for specific advice, rather than handing over a rolling percentage of everything they own forever. Number 1. Spending as a mood fix. This is the one that quietly does more damage than all the others combined, and it's the one almost nobody wants to talk about, because it's a little uncomfortable to admit. Retirement removes a lot of structure from your week, and structure turns out to be one of the biggest things keeping impulse spending in check. Boredom on a slow Tuesday afternoon turns into an online cart. Loneliness turns into ordering something just to have a package to look forward to. A friend's vacation photos turn into a trip you book to keep up, even when it's not really in the budget. A grandchild's visit turns into $300 of toys they'll forget about within a week. None of that is a character flaw. It's an extremely human response to boredom, loneliness, or comparison. But the retirees who've genuinely held on to their wealth seem to have built a specific kind of immunity to it over decades. They don't shop to fill boredom. They've built actual hobbies for that. They don't spend to feel connected. They pick up the phone and call someone instead. They don't buy their grandkids affection. They give them time, which turns out to matter more and never shows up on a statement. The single question that seems to do the most work here is simple. Will I still be glad I bought this in 30 days? It sounds almost too simple to matter, but pause on that question honestly before your next non-essential purchase, and you'll be surprised how often the honest answer is no. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The biggest long-term threat to most people's retirement isn't the stock market, and it isn't inflation. It's an ordinary afternoon, an ordinary feeling, and a wallet that's a little too easy to reach for. None of the retirees I've described got there through some secret investment trick or a lucky windfall. Almost all of them got there the same quiet way, by simply not buying the things everyone around them kept buying year after year for decades. While the neighbors were leasing a new SUV every 3 years and redoing the kitchen for the second time, they were driving a paid-off truck, leaving the bathroom alone, and letting the account quietly grow in the background. It's not a flashy story. It's not going to make a great highlight reel, but it works over and over again for the people who actually stick with it. If any of these 7 hit home, drop a comment and tell me which one. I promise you're not alone, and I'm guilty of at least one myself. If you want more of this kind of breakdown, subscribe, because there's more coming. Thanks for watching, and take care of yourselves out there.